I have a pet dog that I walk 3 times each day, once in the morning, again in the afternoon, and lastly at night. We always take the same path, exiting through our driveway to a dead-end parking area for our condo complex. This detail is important for what I'm about to share. I prefer the night walks to be a bit later. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's become a routine since I got my dog, and it's usually uneventful until one unsettling evening. That night, as we set out on our usual walk, I carried a flashlight since the parking area lacks proper lighting. I was listening to tunes with just one earbud in, thinking it wise to keep the other ear free, just in case I needed to be more alert, and it turns out I did. As we neared the parking lot, I began to hear a faint voice. At first, I was too absorbed in my music to pay much attention. However, as we got closer, my attention shifted from the music to the mysterious sounds. I paused, removed my earbud, and stood very still, straining to hear better. I thought maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But then the voice came again, clearer this time, from somewhere ahead in the darkness. But I couldn't see anyone around. Despite thinking it might just be my imagination, I cautiously continued forward, the unease growing with each step. After a few paces, I stopped again, amidst a row of parked cars, flashlight sweeping across the dimly lit area. I paused, listening intently, and that's when the most terrifying moment happened. Through the muffled silence, I heard what sounded like a child's voice whispering, "Help!" My heart sank, adrenaline freezing my legs in place. I shone the flashlight frantically, trying to locate the source of the voice that seemed to emanate from among the cars. But there was no child to be seen, no one at all. It was just me and my dog, who seemed oblivious, sniffing around some bushes. Then the voice repeated, "Help!" 3 more times, clearly coming from the left, near where the cars were parked. Panic surged through me. I knew I wasn't imagining things when I noticed my dog's ears perk up, his gaze fixed in the direction of the sounds. The realization of the situation's eeriness hit me hard, sending chills down my spine. After hearing the voice repeatedly, I started to realize that it didn't quite sound like a child. It was odd, almost like a blend of an adult and a child's voice combined, and each call for help was oddly uniform. The voice was always muffled, not like a real cry for help, but more like a repetitive, hollow statement. There was no variation in tone or emotion, it was eerily consistent every single time. Panicked, my dog and I sprinted back home. I tried to explain to my mum what had happened. She was just as baffled as I was, and though I suggested we call the police in case someone was really in trouble, she didn't think it was necessary. My mind was racing with questions. Why was the voice muffled? Could someone be trapped inside a car, unseen? Or was it something more sinister, something waiting for me to come closer? I try not to dwell on it too much, but the memory of that night still unsettles me deeply. I took a picture of the spot where I first removed my AirPod to listen more carefully. It was here, up ahead on the left, where the voice seemed the closest. I approached cautiously, and it was from the left near the parked cars that I heard the calls for help. While there is a condo complex on the right, the sounds were definitely coming from the direction of the cars, exactly where my dog and I stood, rooted in fear. From where I stood, there was nothing visible that could explain the source of the noise. Additionally, the vehicles parked at the time were mostly trucks and SUVs, large enough to obscure much of my view, making it even harder to pinpoint exactly where the sound was coming from. This mystery has never been solved. The large vehicles created significant blind spots, and there was no clear indication of anything unusual in the area, just the chilling, disembodied voice piercing the quiet night. It remains one of those unresolved incidents that linger in my mind, a puzzle without all the pieces. What I'm about to share will explain why my folks packed up and left a home that had been with us for generations. I've been battling the blues for as long as I can remember. Feeling worthless is something that's clung to me tightly. I'm in a better place now, thankfully. But back when I was younger, it was a different story. That's why I often found myself cooped up in my room. Our place was tucked away, surrounded by woods. Three sides of our house were hugged by trees, with a dense forest cutting us off from any nearby houses. My room was larger than most, sitting at the back corner of our home. Two of its walls had windows that looked out into the woods, which was pretty intimidating for someone my age, and the dark, it scared me to my core. Weird things began when I hit 10. I was in 5th grade, old enough that crashing in my parents' bed after a nightmare was frowned upon, yet I was still tagged as the kid with a wild imagination. The first oddity involved my nightlight. It came with various colour options, and I could switch up the hues as I liked. Red was my go-to, it usually helped me drift off. But one night, I snapped awake, out of nowhere, deep in the wee hours. That was rare for me. Drained as I was, I dozed off again within seconds. But right before I drifted off again, I caught a glimpse of the nightlight, glowing a stark blue. Not the red I always set it to. At first, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just seeing things in my sleepy state. However, a week later, the scenario repeated. I woke up one morning to find the nightlight glaring in green. I confronted my parents, asking if they were playing tricks on me, but they looked genuinely puzzled and denied any involvement. They suggested maybe the nightlight was just acting up, claiming it had always been a bit faulty. I tried to shake off my unease, accepting their explanation for a while. But then, one morning, I woke to find the nightlight unplugged and resting on the floor beside my bed. My parents brushed off my concerns again, urging me to focus on my studies instead. My dad even mentioned that maybe it was time to get rid of the nightlight, considering my age. A few days later, the nightlight disappeared altogether. It seemed to vanish into thin air. That's when I started suspecting my parents might be behind its disappearance, possibly thinking it was time for me to outgrow such childish things and doing away with it themselves. This suspicion led to a heated argument. I accused them of hiding it, they denied it, and neither side would back down. It was hard to believe they would lie so blatantly, especially about something that seemed so trivial yet so significant to me. But I felt powerless to change anything. For a brief week, life seemed normal again. However, that calm was short-lived. For 3 consecutive nights, I was jerked awake without any clear reason. Each night left me more puzzled than the last. By the 4th night of sudden awakenings, I decided to share this with my parents. They brushed it off as just another side effect of puberty, telling me body changes were natural and could disrupt my sleep. Determined to figure it out, I stayed awake the next time I was abruptly woken. Within minutes, I heard soft rustling sounds coming from my closet. My attempts to convince my parents were futile. My dad even went as far as to check the closet, finding nothing but old toys and posters. But the following 4 nights were sheer terror. I kept waking up to that same unsettling noise from the closet. It felt like torture, and I couldn't handle it any longer. I pleaded with my parents to take me seriously. Frustrated, my dad yanked me to my closet to prove once and for all that there was nothing there. He began to angrily toss the toys out, clearing the closet while shouting. But his anger turned to shock when he ripped down one of the posters, revealing a massive hole hidden behind it. My mum screamed at the sight, and my dad quickly grabbed a flashlight. The hole was so deep we couldn't see where it ended. My dad dashed outside to check the exterior of the house. He found a small opening in the ground at the base of our home, and after some digging, it became clear it wasn't just a small pit. It was a tunnel leading from the woods directly to my room. That night, my mom and I didn't stay home. We went to my aunt's house, and shortly afterward, we moved out permanently. I stayed at my aunt's until we relocated. Thinking back on it still gives me shivers, and though I know I need to face what happened, it's tough. My parents avoid discussing the incident. I suspect they feel guilty for not believing me earlier. It's terrifying to realize that someone might have been entering my room night after night for over a month. I still have no clue what their intentions were, and perhaps I never will. Remember, if your children ever tell you something strange is happening, please take them seriously. My name's Leo. Honestly, I'm kind of struggling right now. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but my family life is a mess. I've spent the last 3 years trying to stay as far from home as I can. My old buddies from school are turning into people I hardly recognize, and my little town doesn't feel like home anymore. I'm about to finish college, and frankly, I haven't got a clue what to do next. But let's skip the sad talk. I was in Berlin last year. Guess I was looking for a place where I fit, or maybe just a new direction. I remember the bar I ended up in. I was there by myself, which isn't new for me. When it was time to head out, I reached into my pocket and great no apartment keys. I left the bar and started walking home anyway. Of course, the place was locked tight. Too late to get spare keys, and now, what to do? Most people might have a plan, but all I could think was to find somewhere to crash for the night. And just to top it off, it began to pour rain. Eventually, I settled for sleeping under a nearby bridge. I didn't even know where I was, but it was dry and seemed safe enough, so I felt okay. As I started to doze off, I caught some faint voices from the other side of the river. I sat up and saw about 5 guys standing there with a small boat moored at the bank. They hadn't noticed me. It didn't take long to figure out what was happening. Looked like a drug deal or something serious like that. My German's pretty rough, so I couldn't catch their words, but the way they passed around briefcases and duffel bags gave it away. I thought about moving, but I didn't want to get seen and pull attention. Best to just stay put until it was over, I figured. Then out of nowhere, one of the guys shouted something sharp in German and pointed a gun at another guy. Everything went quiet. The guy with the gun up just raised his hands, speaking fast. Seemed like they were setting him up. The others quickly took his clothes and started grabbing his stuff. Feeling unsafe, I carefully got up to leave. Just then, one of the men yelled something that meant, "There's someone there," in English. I bolted, not daring to look back as they shouted after me. The only words I caught were, "Don't shoot." I kept running until I was sick and nearly passed out from the mix of fear and too much alcohol. They didn't catch me, but they could have easily shot me. Sometimes, I still think about how close I was to losing my life that night. It feels like maybe I'm just meant to keep running,